it was undone by its opposite element because it gave into its opposite element by letting out a sound.
But this is
a pretty interesting theme, and I wonder if it's to an extent maybe Howard just having another kind of dig at Lovecraft, even as this story was basically littered with nods to him.
Yeah, you mean like these kind of metaphysical themes, like what the mind can perceive and understand. It's kind of like a silence and sound. It's kind of a it is funny in a way.
Yeah, I think that it's meant to, at least and silence screamed is meant to be a little funny in that, like
maybe it's an inside joke a bit between.
Yeah, I think it is an inside joke between Howard and Lovecraft, and Lovecraft probably would have understood it and might have had a good laugh about it.
But it's really the like I said, the build up to the ending, like it's step by step, foot by foot. He fought his way into the chamber of death, driving the silence before him. Every step was screaming demoniac torture. Every foot was ravaging hell. Shoulders hunched, head down, arms raising and falling in jerky rhythm. Kull forced his way, and great drops of blood gathered on his brow and dropped unceasingly. Like that's quite the description there. Also, Brule came to help, I think. Brule crawled blindly forward, trailing his sword, still dazed and only following his stunned instinct, which bade him follow the king through the trail led to hell. And then Kull forced the silence back step by step, feeling it growing weaker and weaker, feeling it dwindling. Now the sound of the gong pealed out and grew and grew. It filled the room, the earth, the sky. The silence cringed before it, and as the silence dwindled and was forced into itself, it took hideous form that Kull saw yet did not see. His arm seemed dead, but with a mighty effort he increased his blows. Now the silence writhed in a dark corner and shrunk and shrunk. Again, at last blow, all the sound in the universe rushed together in one roaring, yelling, shattering, engulfing burst of sound. The gong blew into a million vibrating fragments, and silence screamed. I think that's, like I said, very well the build-up voice.
And that's the thing, like, Kull leads... There's another thing. Kull leads them into hell, so to speak, and Brule follows no matter what. And
it
that's
also
their way.
Yeah.
Kull heads into danger. Brule follows to protect him. But here, Brule cannot. In this case, this is a. Brule and Kull are always saving each other, but here, Kull very firmly is the one saving.
Yeah, he makes amends to what he has done.
But
I also... No, go ahead. I'm going to say one thing afterwards.
Well, all I was going to say was Brule... Brule's... Like... Brule is probably one of the most fascinating characters. And I just find he's a sentimental man's character in a way. Like, he's loyal to a fault. He's always at Kull's side. And ultimately, it might be the best modern depiction of the very definition of brotherhood.
Yeah. One thing that struck me right now when I read this, because it says here, like, it was like demonic torture. Every foot was ravaging hell. So basically, because in the beginning of the story, it says, all these things were known to Rama, the greatest mind of all the ages, who eons ago freed humanity from the grasp of unknown demons and raised the race to its heights. Because this entity really... It behaves like a demon. Like its point is to destroy everything. Because here in the vision, the universe. Because the Kull's vision is his men died in gibbering stillness, the roar of rivers, the crash of seas, the noise of winds falter and cease to be. All sound was drowned by the silence. soul-destroying, brain-shattering, blotting out all life on Earth and reaching monstrously up into the skies, crushing the very singing of the stars. So basically, Rama had helped to capture this and held it at bay, and he was the one also who elevated the human race in Kull's universe to from slavery to demons. And here now Kull makes the mistake of entertaining a demon, and he almost pays the price. Like it begins to torture them, it begins to attack them, and Kull fights every inch, every foot, every step of the way of this elemental force to drive it back from whence it came. So it's I just thought that was an interesting 2 points there that was mentioned earlier. So it's kind of like he dabbles with something he should not have dabbled with, something that was understood in an earlier time that this is bad and wrong, and it's been locked up
for a reason.
For a reason. You should not, because it's basically destruction itself.
Yeah, and I think that while there's a lot of inside jokes between Howard and Lovecraft, and there's a lot of themes and ideas here, I think that there's also a warning. There are things
should not be tampered with. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do not do certain things, and know your limits. And the trouble is, interestingly, Howard was always very concerned about the fate of men and where the future was leading us.
Right.
And this is something that, it came from a place of love, I think, for humanity. So he's providing a warning.
Kind of reminds me of there's a interview with Christopher Lee, who played Saruman.
Count Dooku.
Yeah, Count Dooku, Saruman, and Dracula. And he said, don't mess with the occult. Like basically, he like really strong and sternly said, like, you do not mess with the occult. It will be your undoing, basically.
You will lose your mind and your soul.
Yeah, you will lose your mind. Yeah, exactly. He's right on. Because somewhere he had come across that he would have something like that, and he said no. Just kind of reminded me of the story and what happens here as well.
Yeah, and the thing is with Howard is that there's so many layers to, and so much thought put behind every story and every sentence. Like a lot of pulp writers back then were really good. A lot of writers back then were incredible. It's like you look at Tolkien, a lot of his sentences flow like music and whatnot. But ultimately, there are times in one or two chapters in the beginning, Tolkien meanders a little. And I love the meandering, but Howard does not meander. And when he does, it's chock full of warnings or of pondering about humanity and whatnot. And yet, there's a different, I guess you could say there's a different element to Howard. Like if Tolkien is the earth, Howard is fire or something. You know what I mean? And Howard is ultimately just a very complex thinking man's writer.
Right.
But yeah, the next story we're going to take a look at is The Ulcer and the Scorpion.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting story. Kull does not really feature in this one.
Only in the background.
Yeah. And it is
one of the shortest ones, I think.
Yeah, it's about 4 pages, I think?
Yeah.
3. Okay.
3.5, basically.
Yeah. You have a boy who cries out for a great scorpion, which this just fills me with dread, just the thought of a giant scorpion.
Yeah.
Aid thy worshipper. Thou knowest how in bygone days Gonra of the sword, my greatest ancestor, died before thy shrine on a heap of slain barbarians who sought to defile thy holiness. Through the mouths of thy priests, thou promised aid to Gonra's race for all the years to come. And Gonra of the sword, well, for one thing, that sounds like a pretty badass and cool name.
Unless you think of gonorrhea. But
yeah, true. Fair enough. But any guy who's named of the sword sounds pretty
gonorrhea
cool.
of the sword. Yeah.
Well, he's gone the way of the sword, anyways, because he dies on the altar. And
yeah. And I think that's an interesting lore drop here. We get that I figured these barbarians weren't they? These are the Atlanteans who take Valusia. And Gonra was the one who was defending Valusia then and died at the altar.
Doubtless something of a saint for the religion of the Great Scorpion.
Yeah. It's also interesting that it's kind of been, it seems like it's been usurped, or this religion is not in favor anymore at Kull's court. Yeah, I think. Because I don't remember there was mention of Great Scorpion in the other stories. Or was there? I can't remember.
Yeah, but you have an interesting intro line, another intro line, because these are all intro lines for the first page or so. Great Scorpion, Guron, High Priest of the Black Shadow, is my enemy. Kull, King of all Valusia, rides from his purple-spired city to smite with fire and steel the priests who have defied him and still offer human sacrifice to the Dark Elder gods. But before the king may arrive and save us, I and the girl I love shall lie stark on the black altar in the temple of everlasting darkness. Guron has sworn he will give our soft bodies to ancient and abhorred abominations, and at last our souls to the god that lurks forever in the black shadow. So Morgoth. I'm joking.
Yeah, basically. Sure. But that's great once again, the writing there really sets the mood.
Yeah. It's a line that feels rather Shakespearean in nature. And what I like is that there's a temple of everlasting darkness, and my question is, why hasn't Kull already put it to the torch? But on the other hand, I wonder if this is early in Kull's reign.
Yeah, I think so. He's now doing it. He is basically coming to destroy this evil place.
Yeah.
It's
by the time Shadow Kingdom takes place, Kull's been king for a while.
Yeah, the Black Shadow, that's interesting. It's a god, a malevolent deity of the Thurian age, also known as the Unnameable One. He was one of the Dark Elder gods who demanded human sacrifice on his black altar.
So probably set from the Hyborian age.
Yeah, that also reminds once again of Lovecraft, the Dark Elder gods and stuff like that. Something unnameable.
Probably a nod.
Yeah, that's a cool name. Temple of Everlasting Darkness.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, well, the Black Shadow sounds like something Tolkien might have named Morgoth or Melkor,
right?
As he's also known. So, with Melkor serving in some of the tales, almost a role akin to some of those elder god type characters, and he's as cruel as some of them in some stories.
So did Melkor have someone higher above him? That he a more evil entity, or?
No, what he did was he defied Eru Iluvatar.
Yeah, that's what I know. But I was just thinking, like, was there some force that that he basically worshipped, or he was enough for himself, basically? Or
Well, he was always in it for himself.
Yeah,
He's
obviously.
up with, well, it's just in the way he. Well, the thing with him is he ends up. How do I put it? He ends up kind of. Okay, Sauron and many others worship Morgoth as a god, and you have Thurin Gwethil, and you have in the first age, and in the second age you have the Númenóreans who worship the faith of Morgoth, and they end up deciding that because they worship Morgoth, this gives them the. They believe that Morgoth is the true creator of everything, and he was the first god, and that he can, with his blessings, they may defy the Valar and throw them down and overtake and take their place on Taniquetil and in Aman. So, in the first age, Morgoth is more like a force of nature, an element that no man can beat or topple. He's not really an elder god. But in the second age, with Sauron and the Númenóreans and Ar-Pharazôn, he starts to almost take on a role like that, sort of, even though he's beyond the doors of night. He's sealed away by the Valar, but the way the evil Maiar and the evil forces in the world operate, it's a little reminiscent, is all I mean.
Right.
And it's interesting that as the world is getting older, Morgoth becomes more revered and goes from being feared to worshipped.
Isn't there also like the Battle of all battles at the end? Dagor?
Dagorrath. Yeah. Morgoth comes back, and the forces of good have to fight against the forces of evil.
Does it say how he? Does it say how he escapes from beyond the door of the night?
No, he just blasts them apart, I think, or something. Well, he just tears his way out back into the world, and he comes back. But Turin Turambar defeats him, and Morgoth dies all but begging for his life from Turin. Which, given all the horrible things he did to the children of Húrin, for him to almost die,
But isn't Turin? Is Turin just a man, or is he?
He's a man elevated to in the Dagor to a higher station.
Oh, right.
By the Valar. But he was one of the most foolish men. He was arrogant, and he was foolish.
Right.
He thought he could defy Morgoth and defeat him.
Right.
But he was cursed and ultimately succumbed to his curse. But in Dagor he makes a comeback and he throws down Morgoth.
Right.
And destroys him. And then you have the second music of the Ainur. So there are there are similarities, but it's massively different. Howard's got some very elemental forces here. And Kull is mentioned as sitting high on the throne of Volusia. But that Guron rules the mountain city. And that he's after the boy.
Yeah.
And
he's calling on aid.
Yeah. And as you call him, gonorrhea gave up his life for...
No, I just thought that reminded me of that name.
Now, apparently, it's like you said, they fought off the Atlantean savages who carried the torch for you when the Atlantean savages carried the torch and sword into Volusia. So evidently they were burning and slaughtering a lot of people in Volusia. They were not very nice brigands. But even the reference of this invasion by Atlanteans into Volusia and Volusia rose again to higher heights after this invasion, brings to mind the initial barbarian or Celtic invasion into Italy, and which resulted in the first sacking of Rome in the 3rd century BC.
Right.
That's where, and then you had new walls built up, and the Romans vowed never again will Rome be torched. But then that happened again in the 5th century AD. So when the Romans had, well, all but lost their empire. Actually, it got torched like 3 times in that century.
Yeah.
The mother of the ravaged.
It's interesting that they got so close, so came all the way to Rome. Like, where was all the armies protecting? Like, it's to get so far inland is what I mean.
Yeah, that's what this passage about Volusia in her ancient history reminds me of. I wonder if Howard was thinking of that. Same kind of.
That brings back to when you said about these early pulp writers. They read a lot of history, and there was a lot of time to read, so you can really feel it in the stories. Usually, in these early 20th century, you can feel a lot of knowledge in different areas and things.
In sentences.
It comes through in a different way than it does nowadays in writing, it seems. But yeah, anyway, here the girl darts into the shadow doorway, and she says, "Guron, he comes," and then we get a description of Guron. Guron the high priest was a tall, gaunt man, a cadaverous giant. So that's interesting. He's a giant. I'm thinking, does he mean like literally? Because there was I read on the Conan wiki, it said that some think that means that he was one of the elder races, like the old races, more of a giant race. So I'm thinking, is it just a description that he was a big man, or was it like literally that he was one of those older races, like he was more of a giant than the normal men?
I think that it's supposed to depend on the reader.
Because then his evil eyes glimmer like fiery pools under his penthouse brows, and his thin gash of a mouth gaped in a silent laugh. Yeah.
Because I think Howard probably would have intended for that too.
Because if you look at the picture of him,
he's a giant.
Yeah, he's quite the intimidating figure there.
But when I read it, I just ended up thinking of a really tall, large man.
But I kind of like actually the other explanation more.
Makes sense.
It's one of the more older races, the evil.
I do like that. My first thought was just large.
Yeah, that's true.
But I like the idea of a giant far more. It adds an air of, I guess, mystery would be the right word, and
right,
something
old
side. Yeah, something old, which
that has been festering for too long, and Kull is coming and erasing that mistake.
Yep. But I think that the thing about Howard and Tolkien is that both of their worlds feel positively ancient.
Yeah. Although, especially Thurian age, the Kull's age.
Yeah. Although I think that one difference between even the Thurian age and let's say the elder days of the first age of Tolkien's Legendarium is that there, in some of the stories, like when you get to the story of Turin in Children of Húrin, or some of the later first age stories, like the wars amongst the elves over the Silmaril of Beren and Luthien, the world feels young still. It's only with the dawn of the Second Age that the world starts to feel very, very old. weirdly. The tone seems to shift. Whereas with Howard, by the time of Kull, the world is just ancient beyond belief. And every sentence gives a sense of just how ancient and incomprehensibly old this world is, which this adds when you consider all these short stories and all the pastiche stories and whatnot and all of the Conan stories and whatnot that come before the Hour of the Dragon, that in terms of the timeline, it just adds to the epicness and to the lore of Hour of the Dragon, which is the peak of all of Howard's stories and what it's all building up to. So I genuinely think that this giant idea is a really good one, and it makes more sense than what I was thinking on my most recent read through. And I like how the boy tries to threaten Guron, saying, "If you have no fear of the king or pity for us, beware offending the great scorpion under whose protection we are." And Guron, of course, is foolish and says, "The king? What means the king to me, who am mightier than any king? The great scorpion? Ho, ho, a forgotten god, a deity remembered only by children and women. Would you pit your scorpion against the black shadow? Fool, Valka himself, god of all the gods, could not save you now. You are sworn to the god of the black shadow." Now,
yeah, go ahead.
Arguably, he just made, if you read this in a Greek style story manner, he just insulted Valka. So he's going to have his comeuppance come upon him. He has to, because Valka has to hit him with comeuppance.
It's also what I was thinking about this guy is why is he focusing on sacrificing to his god two people when there's enemy at the gates who are ready to burst into his kingdom or his city, and he's not out there doing whatever he should be doing? I guess sacrificing to his god is one way of helping that. I guess that would be one.
He's looking
one idea.
He's looking to guarantee what could be described as divine assistance. And
that's true.
Oh, we have a comment from Gola. "I'm amazed how well these guys wrote. I also have the letters between Howard and Lovecraft. Wow. The amount of info and thought they put into their letters is amazing. Letter writing is really a lost art."
Oh, yeah. That's true. That's very true.
Very true.
Quite a few letters, I think, they're kind of like novels. So it's definitely a forgotten art, lost to the ages, basically.
Yeah. Well, it might make a comeback at some point down the road, but
when all electricity is taken away.
Which you never know. But that said, dog's just shifting in a very weird way. I'm expecting him to roll onto his back at some point. Anyways, the interesting thing is that Guron insults Valka. So I wonder if both Valka and the Great Scorpion decide, okay, this guy has to go. He insulted both of us.
Yeah.
But I wonder, now, not to be crude or crass in any way, but he seems fixated on this couple. And I wonder if maybe it has one of two reasons. One, they've not yet consummated their love, and so you have a pure love between them. Or they have, but it's a matter of their true love and him wanting to sacrifice that and their souls to his God.
I think you're onto something there. That is a very historical thing. It's the more pure, the more power it has to to the evil gods, demons, whatever you're sacrificing it to, because it's something more that has been corrupted or destroyed. Basically, destroyed is the better word.
Now, there's also something interesting. Fools to think to escape me, always men of your blood, boy, have opposed me in council and court. Now you pay, and the black shadow drinks. Ho, ho, I rule the city today, and let he be king who may. Now, right there, it seems that the boy might be the child of someone who opposed him in council, and might have a blood connection to some of the Guran's political enemies.
Yeah, at least
so there's also that.
Yeah,
that's another reason. It doesn't always have to be one reason only. It could be a multitude of reasons that influence such decisions.
Yeah, seems his family or ancestors have opposed him.
Yep.
More and
politically,
more.
At least.
It's interesting. This is definitely a theocratic kingdom or city. My priests throng the streets full armed, and no man dare say me nay. So it seems the priests are also fighting. They are the fighters as well, I think.
Yeah, there was a time when priests were typically warriors. You look at, Christianity at the High Middle Ages period. You have Thomas Becket. He was more knight than priest. People forget that. And you have over in Scotland, several of the great bishops and priests who followed Robert the Bruce were warriors who fought at Bannockburn and countless other battles and skirmishes against the English. You have a lot of French priests in that period who were warriors. And you have even in, now I'm just referring back to the medieval period, but even in pre-Christian times, priests were often warriors as well. So you look at the Norse, but
right.
Yeah. But
I think this... No, go ahead. No, I was just going...
I lost track of my thought.
All right. I was just going to comment the next part here where Guran says, ho, ho, what fools to pin your faith on a god whose men have long ceased to worship, who has not even a priest to attend him, and who is granted a shrine only because of the memory of his former greatness, who is accorded reverence only by simple people and foolish women. Now, this is a really, really stupid statement and a really moronic one by Guran. These things that he says that doesn't have a priest, there is no one who remembers, there's no reverence, there is no more greatness. These are not things that take away God's greatness or not being great. It's not. These are like, those are outward things. Like if a god is a god, he has his power, or he does not have his power. So exactly. This is kind of like like once again he insults, and the gods then pay him back for his insult. But this is that's a stupid logic there.
Yeah, like on the one hand, he's going to sacrifice this duo to his own gods. And then he says, well, how can your gods have nothing, so they're weak and can't affect me. And the trouble is that when it comes to the gods of this couple, he's looking at it in a materialist way, like purely on the physical plane. And when it comes to his own god, he needs souls. So he's such a moronic individual, as you pointed out. And he's also just because a religion, like I think it also gets into the idea, so long as only one person holds the torch, it's still alive. You know what I mean? Like, you look at the Roman pagan faith, it lasted into the era of Justinian, who was in the 6th century. Long after Christianity was the primary faith of the empire. And yet there were men who lived under a Christian empire for almost 2 centuries and still carried the torch of paganism. And it did not die out until quite a bit after.
Yeah.
So like all it takes is just one man, and you can.
Right, but I was not even talking about that. Like, I don't care if like that wasn't the point. Like, even if there's no man, like even if there's no man, like think of it like this: truth does not stop being the truth, even if there's not a person around saying the truth. The truth is still the truth. Yeah. You can't take away its power. Like, that's the point. I think
I know.
that I like. Just because there aren't any priests there doesn't mean that the God doesn't hear and see, like
exactly,
and do things. So that's why he's like he's equating the greatness to service of the men of the people, basically.
And I'll use a mythological example, but. In how many myths, like, do the priests of a temple get slaughtered or are not around, and someone thinks, well, I can commit a crime here. Like, surely the God won't notice. The truth won't get out that I, in how many Greek myths, violated a priestess or a woman in the shrine. And then the Greek God goes, what have you done? No, you've desecrated my holy place. Here's a doom lobbed onto you. So yeah, this giant's not thinking this through, or if he is, he's got rocks for brains.
But this is a great once again the sentence here. The real gods are dark and bloody. Remember my words when soon you lie on an ebon altar behind which broods a black shadow forever. Before you die, you shall know the real gods, the powerful, the terrible gods who came from forgotten worlds and lost realms of blackness, who had their birth on frozen stars and black suns brooding beyond the light of any stars. You shall know the brain-shattering truth of that unnameable one, to whose reality no earthly likeness may be given, but whose symbol is the black shadow. This is very, once again, Lovecraftian, I think. The old ones, as are in the Cthulhu mythos, are beings that have come beyond space and stars and worlds, basically. Like, they come from afar, frozen stars and stuff like that. So that's a really cool, very Lovecraftian, very cool sentence. Once again, is very descriptive.
But ultimately, he reaches for the girl, and then this is just so funny. I like how a scream shattered the crystal gong of the silence into a million vibrating shards. Now that's obviously a reference to the other story, Screaming Skull.
Yeah, I was just thinking like gong once again, shattering.
Yeah. Except this time it destroys sound. As Guron bounded into the air and fell on his face, screeching and writhing, some small creature scurried away and vanished through the door. Guron's screams dwindled into a high, thin squealing and broke short at the highest note. So he squealed and like, I don't know, a baby, but silence fell like a deathly mist. At last the boy spoke in an odd whisper. What was it? Now the girl had frozen right before this, seemingly out of terror for the giant and what he was talking about. But apparently it was in reality because there was a scorpion crawling on her, and she didn't want to stab her. And I just love how Guron puts up this big speech about how much of a man he is, how terrifying and evil and powerful and unbeatable his gods are, only to die crying like a baby.
Yeah, isn't that how it goes?
Yeah,
for a lot of evil people.
Yeah,
when they meet their end.
Yeah, that's always how it is. They always end up begging. And you have the boy who asks, "What was it?" And I like how you have the girl who says, "A scorpion. It crawled across my bare bosom without harming me. And when Guron seized me, it stung him." And this is where we have an interesting piece of lore, as well as this direct reference to divine intervention. No scorpion has been seen in this city for longer than men remember. And you have the girl who apparently follows the same faith, who says, "The Great One summoned this of his people to our aid. The gods never forget, and the great Scorpion has kept his oath. Let us give thanks to him." And
then you hear Kull coming at the end of the story. Until a distant clash, many silver-shod hoofs and the clangor of swords bore them the coming of the king.
Yeah. What I like is that this story has Kull more in the background and explores his early kingship, possibly just a few months after he's grabbed the throne. And we get here him stamping out one of these rival factions or
evil cults.
Yeah. Which he hated so much and were the bane of his existence, such as the Snake Men. I get the feeling this takes place before Shadow Kingdom. So
it's an interesting story.
Yeah, and you've got this couple who are clearly clashing with an evil giant priest. But what I love is just how pathetic he goes down, in that you have here, as you pointed out, the truth is not something you can simply squash or hide away. It must have its day. It always comes out. And here, the truth is, this Scorpion god is a factor to be, well, he's real in this story. And he did not appreciate the insult to him. And neither probably did Volka. So this giant went down rather pathetically.
I mean, of course, he monologued.
And yet, there's also that. And yet, it's interesting that while they're giving thanks to the glistening scorpions on the altar, the last sentence is, "Until a distant clash of many silver-shod hoofs and the clangor of swords bore them the coming of the king." As you pointed out. Now, this is a great sentence, and there's something glorious about it. You know what I mean? There's something simply
about the liberation, freedom, end to evil. Right.
And
that's true.
Yeah.
There's also like the point here is like the god remembered his covenant that he had made with this family, with this boy's ancestors, that he will aid them at their hour of need.
Yeah,
it's an interesting, smaller story, I think, here between all the other Kull stories.
Yeah,
that's what kind of interesting. Like they wrote these kinds of stories that Kull might not have been the central protagonist of the story, but he was around more. So.
The story is kind of reminiscent of that which Tolkien began with the Second Age, with Tar Almar, where you have I believe a Druidine who mated with a Númenórean woman, and then had Tar Almar, his youngest son, who was prophesied that he would do something great and accomplish greatness, and he was going to go on an epic quest. Then Tolkien just stops at the prologue, but you have some reference to other characters and the external greater universe out there and world out there. But it just reminds me just more because characters like Elrond, Gil-galad, Galadriel are not present, and here Kull's not present until the end. And so but at least Howard had the good decency to finish the story rather than leave it hang. Now, I love Tolkien, but the seeds planted with Tar Almar are great, but he didn't finish it. But anyways, as for this story, I just love that last sentence. And the thing about Howard is he doesn't just start a story really well. He ends it on a high note.
Yeah, we talked about that on last stream.
Yeah. And
That's very true.
of course, speaking of ending on a high note, so did that giant. Sorry.
Yeah, that's true.
I couldn't help it.
Squealed like a pig.
Pig.
Yeah, squealed. There's other shorter stories as well that we could look at for the next one as well. The Cat and the Skull, and there was some other ones as well. The Strike of the Gong, The Curse of the Golden Skull. So there's quite a few quite short ones in the Kull book, or the Kull stories. Some of these that are fragments or not finished, they also have, I think they have been finished by Lynn Carter. They're not here though, but I mean, in if one buys the, I think there's some books that you can buy that has finished stories of those unfinished ones. Would be interesting to read them as well, see how they went.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah, unfinished stories are not fun.
No. Howard's were brilliant, but the reason he lost interest in a lot of these stories was Kull was not bringing the kind of profits he wanted. So
the market, yeah.
And
I think that's once again the difference here. Kull is like we talk about metaphysical thinking, brooding, introspective life, and all these kind of things. But Conan is more about the action, more about what's going on right now. We got to do this. We got to do that. We got to save this. We got to end that. Whereas Kull and all this is more of a introspection.
Yeah, philosophical dialogues, like a dialect.
Yeah. So I guess he didn't bring the money in that sense. So he shifted then. Because it was his livelihood.
I wonder if maybe this Kull problem, like of the dialectic issue of some of the stories after Shadow Kingdom, because Shadow Kingdom was a pretty good success, but the rest weren't. But I wonder if this, just to refer to the Tolkien's, the story of Agnor and Andreth is basically just a dialectic between two characters discussing metaphysics and the state of the universe, and like the metaphysics of the elves and the humans and how energies work and what's the difference between them. Christopher Tolkien decided that although his father really wanted this in the Silmarillion, it should not be put in. And the story of Andreth is a really fascinating one, and the discussion elevates Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion. Like, it really elevates it and brings it philosophically to the level of Howard. But Christopher decided that it should not be part of the Silmarillion and cast it into just a series of drafts that were later published with the history of Middle-earth. A decision I very strongly disagree. Now, I love Christopher. I admire and revere what he decided to do and how he dedicated his life to his father's legacy. But that's not a decision I think that was wise. But I think maybe he was nervous that people might lose interest mid-story, because many of the Silmarillion stories are very, they're dashing adventure and whatnot. And this to suddenly break the narrative and just have this discussion between two characters in between a few rather intensive stories. Maybe he feared that people would lose interest at that point in the story or in the book. I don't know. But these stories aren't bad. They're fascinating. And in particular, I like the Mirrors of Tuzan Thune. Like, I really like that story.
Yeah, I like that one as well, really much.
Yeah, that one's one of my favorites. And it's one that I just find like it's such a unique story. Maybe we should do that one next alongside.
Let's see how long was that story. Let's check here in the intro.
12 pages.
Okay, so it's not that long. Then we can take. What would you say? The Cat and the Skull.
Yeah, that could work. Cat and Skull is pretty long. 30 pages.
30. Oh, right. Then there's The Curse of the Golden Skull.
I was just thinking that one. That's about 6 pages long. Yeah, but I have to admit, I really like the screaming of the screaming skull of silence.
Oh yeah. That was. I gotta say that was a really good one.
I actually preferred the alternative Scorpion.
Really? Why?
Oh, interesting.
Explain.
The entire matter of you have Kull, but this is the pretty much the end of the old and new and a brand new beginning.
Oh yeah, where Kull's the bringer of a new
Right. Yeah.
age, and we get to see Volusia outside of the city and outside of the Kull's immediate sphere of influence.
And the entire topic of accepting or denying of something new that might seem scary, but might be for the best.
I like that.
That's a really good reason.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I really like the. Yeah, that's a really good reason. Or set of reasons, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still, I like the Screaming Skull of Silence.
I agree with you. I really like I said, I really like just overall that story. I love the discussion of what is real, what is reality, sound versus unsound, the madness of men. Yeah. Well, not the madness of men, what can drive men mad. But I also like that, in a way, the madness itself breaks because if you consider sound reason, madness had a moment of reason and winked out. And I like that. But sound.
It's also about madness of men in that sense that a man dabbled in something he should not have dabbled in, or done something he should not have done.
Yeah. So, next time we'll have to, let's see, let me just.
And there's great lore in this Skull of Silence. We get about the Rama.
Yeah.
And we get the court of Kull talking about these issues. Then we get these great descriptions of the terror that this entity of silence does and brings. And we get the fight. Basically an elemental force and bringing it to its end.
There's a lot of great lore also in the Ultra and the Scorpion.
Oh yeah. They're both great.
But I think Mirrors of Tuzanthun and The Curse of the Golden Skull. I think you should perhaps host that stream.
Yeah.
Who knows when? Well,
The Curse of the Golden Skull is very short.
Yeah, we'll have to decide.
It's like 3 pages.
Okay, so 3 pages. That's pretty short.
So we might do another one on top of that as well, I guess.
Yep. But anyways, I'm pretty much out of steam.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. It was a really great, once again, discussion and talk through.
I enjoyed how
great stories.
This one was. I was a little nervous, and I like how laid back we all were.
Yeah. Well, it's gotta be.
Yeah, because we don't have Zero here, sadly, and Zero's always fun to have.
I don't think he's laid back as well, so be
Yeah,
much different.
Zero will be hosting, just to let the audience know, just in case they don't know, we'll be hosting the next Dragon Hour stream, which is going to be pretty epic.
This is a
towards the end of the month.
Great page.
Oh, I love that picture.
Yeah.
Kull on his throne.
Yeah, that's an incredible illustration there.
Oh, man. And the comic book miniseries from Dark Horse really did a lot of nods to the old art. Like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
I
That's
love
great.
that comic book run. Or
About the Shadow Kingdom one. Yeah.
And they even expanded on it with an added story of a snake priest.
Right.
And Brule going off to kill more snake men because he's Brule, the spear slayer. One should maybe also call him the snake slayer. Thank you, Gola. Hope we entertained you despite the
thank you, Gola.
Sedated and relaxed atmosphere rather than our usual bursting of energy thing of Dragon Hour.
No, I think it's good. It's just an interesting discussion about these different topics.
Yeah, and I had the last with this because we rarely ever discuss Kull, but Kull was really one who got it started.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to discuss Kull. Yeah. We always discuss Conan, so it's really cool to discuss Kull.
Yeah,
and his stories, because I remember really loving these the book, the stories. So
yeah, ironically, before I read any Conan, I read a bit of Kull with Dan, and I remember both of us were going in kind of to hate, but then we ended up just reading this and like Shadow Kingdom and then Tuzan Thun, and we went, this is actually awesome. And then we ended up jumping into Conan, and oh my gosh, I think fell in love with Phoenix on the Sword, and then we were like, oh, we're reading the next Conan too. And then we started with you, and it's like, oh man,
yeah,
like it's funny because we originally like, oh, we're gonna so bash these stories, and then we basically get seduced and conquered by them, and we're like, now we're just fanboys.
Why did you have that mindset?
It's because we were young and foolish, and we had the thought, well, the stereotypical thought, because you're raised your entire life, well, these stories are dumb because big barbarian brute.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and you're told that day in, day out.
Right.
And like, remember, I was in academia before, so it was like, what's Howard like? Like, you get a curious and you're told he is dumb. His stories are dumb. You wouldn't like it.
Right.
And I go, but didn't he help found fantasy as an entire genre and concept? Yes, but don't think too much on him. And so, you go in and you go, okay, well, I guess we'll just dump on it, because why not? We need something to do with, I don't know. And then we read it and we're going, this is awesome. Whoever told us this, that Howard sucked, should suck it. And I remember just going, I can feel, I know someone wouldn't like this, but I will never again be accepted by academia because I love Howard. And I just remember thinking that and going, yeah, okay.
That's pretty dumb.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care what any of them think, because I'm loving this, is what I ended up going with. Right then I was like, well, if this burns all my bridges with some friends I have, screw it. I love this. I love it too much. I don't care what anyone thinks. This is love. True love.
There's a collection called King Kull, and that one has three finished stories that were left unfinished. One called Black Abyss, one called Riders Beyond the Sunrise, and one called Wizard and Warrior. if you're interested in more of Kull, they are
Sure.
the finished stories of these fragments that are in this collection by
Sure. Send me the link.
Lynn Carter, I think.
Okay. Well, yeah. Like I said, though,
That's cool.
Kull is where it all started for Dan and I, and although I prefer Conan, I'll always have a soft spot for Kull.
Yeah, it's they're quite close, I would say.
Yeah.
It's not a.
But I still mean
it's not like Kull is like really bad and Conan is like.
no.
It's quite close, I would say. Both have their really good
and honestly, Kull
is like if you want to like immerse in that atmosphere, like if you want to be in that thinking.
And Kull serves a similar role that, say, the Silmarillion serves for Lord of the Rings. It's a prequel, and I would argue Kull really holds up, and it's such a mysterious and beautiful world. And not to plug one of our own videos, but when we were devising our fanfic episode, or at least the first episode, we still got to get back to work on the next one pretty soon. And it was like we had to reread one or two of the Kull stories, and it was such a rush. And we like just deep diving into Volusia, the world of the Thurian Age, Volusia, the Pictish Isles, Atlantis. It is so mysterious. Yeah. It is so unknown, but it is so beautiful. Nonetheless, there's a majesty to it,
right?
Regality, and yeah. But anyways,
ancient times.
It was the Sam in the 90s. Everyone just knew Conan from the movies, so I always got picked on. I totally get that. But I'm sorry you got picked on, but you had very good taste, Gola. I didn't know Conan when I was a kid. I only knew him for the movie, and I liked the movie, but even I fell prey to the belief that Conan was dumb, because there's this, I'm just going to say, there's a mainstream narrative of sorts where people just assume the Arnold character is faithful to the books. But that Arnold character is not actually dumb. He's actually very smart in the Conan the Barbarian movie. But people, like for some reason, the idea that he's a big dumb jock began circulating. Who knows why? I don't know why, but once you read just one Conan story, or one Howard story, you realize Howard is on a par with Tolkien. Howard is brilliant. He's a genius. And I'll just say this, like, bear in mind, I came in to kind of bash, and so I've kind of developed the phrase or the mentality with Howard. How can you read him and not love him? You know what I mean? Like, how can you read everything he writes and not just come to love him? And so I find it just the very worst one of the worst tragedies of the 20th century is that Howard could compose like this, not write, but compose, and create such beauty, and yet could not bring himself to love himself.
Yeah, that is sad.
And I was asked on Twitter, if you can travel back to the 1930s, with the knowledge you have of today, what would you do? And I answered, I would go back to the 30s and tell Robert Howard, times are hard for you right now, but if you survive this time, everyone will know you. You will be great. You can, if you live, you will, you'll conquer this. Like, here's the knowledge, or like, and if you can, like, with the question was the idea, like, if you could show them, like, technology or whatever of what's to come. And I think I would show maybe Howard the facts of how much, like, I think 90 million copies sold worldwide of Hour of the Dragon. Like, that could be yours. Like, you're going to be as, like, because Howard would have probably been a millionaire in a few decades.
Yeah.
But I just think he was such a beautiful individual. I like reading Howard as a historical saga. Kull, Conan, Bran, MacMorn, and Solomon Kane. I think that's how it's supposed to be read.
Yeah. That is quite the idea.
Sorry for the tangent about Howard. I
would definitely also
I just
talk with him. That will be interesting.
I'd probably also tell him we need a second Hour of the Dragon.
I want to talk about the issues more. Like, I think it wasn't really the writing or that. It was more.
But yeah, I think it was
personal
more
stuff.
Yeah,
like I've gone through the same thing, so it's not the.
I'm just saying, I'd want to tell him hope. Like, if you keep your hope and survive this dark night of your life,
dark night of a soul. Yeah.
You'll make it, like, like you and his girlfriend, like, if you want to chase after her, you have the chance now. And if you want to, like, everything you want is within your grasp, and you just need hope. Like, that's all you need. And that's ultimately, I guess, Howard. Oh man, I just feel so bad for him.
Yeah, I mean, I would talk to him about my faiths and stuff like that.
Yeah,
what I'm going through.
Well, you'd probably be more convincing than I, so maybe better to send you back in the past than me. Reading the old Ace, although I'd also want to live in the 1930s, or at least the later 40s and up through that era, because better to live back then than today. But reading the old Ace paperbacks kind of prepped me for long epic fantasy like Lord of the Rings. Yeah, it does serve that purpose. It's a good help for that. I definitely see it, Gola. I like that. Maybe that's a good way of kind of raising kids in a way. Like, you start them with the Ace paperbacks, or like the shorter stories, and you build them up towards Lord of the Rings over time, and Hour of the Dragon, or something.
Right.
I don't know. There's some. Gola's got some wisdom. There. But anyways, I think that's all. So if people aren't already, seriously, smash that like button, whether it's on Brothers Crin or Brothers Heborian, or on Twitch, I guess. Real quick, the short story format got me hooked on reading.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, you don't feel daunted by the.
Yeah. Thanks, Gola, for sharing. And also, don't forget to smash that subscribe button, not just on Brothers Crin or Brothers Heborian, which are, like, for Brothers Heborian, we're trying to get to 100 subs, and from there 1,000, because, let's build up this pure Conan channel. And for Brothers Crin, just keep building it up. But also go over to World of Conan if you haven't already, and subscribe to what is honestly one of the best channels on YouTube. So I'm just being honest.
Thank you.
It's true. You're very welcome. Honestly, like, seriously, check out anything of how the Heborian Age, his Heborian Age essay stuff, his Frost Giant's Daughter. Oh my gosh, I love that video. Or anything he's come out with.
Yeah, that come up very well.
Yeah.
there's also more discussion. There's the Hour of the Dragon that we're doing, but there's also the discussion on the movie Conan the Barbarian.
I love that one.
We went really deep, 5-6 hours on the movie with a lot of deep thinking on it. So if you want to think about the movie more deeper, go definitely check that and the other stuff we did.
Maybe that one ought to be turned into a series of videos as well on your channel.
I was actually thinking about that. It was just like you have to go through it and then clip things. But yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
so that's a good point. Yes.
As soon as I wake up tomorrow morning, because it's pretty late where I am, I'm going to pin your links, World of Conan, down below so people will know where to go to his excellent channel, which for those who are fans of, let's say, Tolkien or whatever, World of Conan is kind of like the Lexi or Stephen, that is to say, Girl Next Gondor or Red Book of Conan tubing. So you guys saw how brilliant he is. Go check out his channel. Subscribe. It's great for everything Conan and Kull and whatnot, and Sword and Sorcery. It's his and Grimdark are the definitive channels for this sort of stuff. So, anything else you want to say, World of Conan?
No, just that I really enjoyed reading Kull again because I just been so focused on Conan and stuff like that. So it just it felt right to read some Kull and just remember the greatness of these Kull stories and just start another live stream or like a book club on Kull as well as on Conan.
Maybe once we're finished with all of these short stories and those by Lynn Carter, maybe we should just get into Kull the Conqueror novel.
Wait, which one? Kull the Conqueror?
Yeah, there's the novelization.
Oh, you mean of the movie? Right.
Yeah, it's quite good.
Yeah, I don't have it. Yeah, I should get it. But also, I think also go into Solomon Kane at some point as well. That's another one. Another one to start.
We started reading him on our Nightmare Reviews channel, our horror channel.
Right.
And we're just having a blast with him. We just read Skulls in the Stars.
Yeah, it's a good one.
But anyways, I'm going to take us off here.
Yes.
So
see you all.
See you.